Hello there, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to have fun coding a simple Python script. I'm just from watching this mrbeast video, which is amazing, and the winner of the 250k in dollars was determined by a voting system called ranked choice voting. If you have not watched that video, I suggest you go watch it after completing this session. In this session, we are going to create a ranked choice voting system in Python. So, a ranked choice voting system, also known as preferential voting or instant runoff voting, is a voting system designed to elect a single winner from a field of more than 2 candidates. In this system, instead of selecting just one candidate, the voters rank the candidates in order of preference. Now that you're up to speed with ranked choice voting, let's set the environment for this project. We shall start with setting the Python environment using pyenv. Then let's create a virtual environment, activate it, and install pandas. I will use pandas only to display data, but the rest of the code will be in pure Python without added dependencies. Now that we have our environment set, let's launch it. I'm using VS Code as my code editor, but you can use any editor of your choice. I have a .py file containing dummy data for votes, which I'm going to copy to this project directory. In this case, all the voters are also candidates, just like what happened in the mrbeast challenge. Let's talk about the dummy data. So here I have candidates, and the candidates variable is a dictionary which contains other dictionaries with the key being like an ID. So here we have ID1, candidate 1 as a name 1, candidate 2 as a name 2. Then we have another variable votes, which is a list of votes, and each vote is a dictionary, and in this dictionary who voted, so here we have candidate 1, and the votes of candidate 1 is they voted themselves to be in the first rank. Then the second most preferable candidate to win is in the second rank, and here candidate 1 wanted candidate 4 to win if they don't win themselves. Then the third preference was candidate 3. If we look at the vote for the second candidate, this is candidate 2. Their vote is like they want themselves to win, so they put themselves in rank 1. But the second most preferred person to win is candidate 3 by dict. And then the third is candidate 1. One more example. So we have here the vote for candidate 3. They want themselves to win, that's why in the first round they voted themselves to win in rank 1. But their second most preferred person to win was candidate 5. And the third most preferred person to win is candidate 2. So this is how ranked choice voting works. Each candidate puts a list of their preference from the first round to the 6 candidates to the 6th round. Let's create the main file that will contain all our script. I'm going to import ranked choice because I want to use the dummy data that is defined there. I'm also importing pandas, which I will only use to display the final results. I'm going to list the steps that I'm going to take to complete this script. And my first step is going to compute the sum of ranks. And for, in this case, what I'm going to do is to have the ranks, sum the ranks. We're going to see the code. But the first step is just going to compute the sum of ranks for each candidate. And then the second step, I'm going to sort each candidate by the sum of ranks that we are going to compute from the first step. So sort the candidates by the sum of ranks. And then the third step is going to be I'm going to generate candidates rank based on the sort. So the first one was to compute the ranks. The second one was to sort the candidates based on the ranks of the computation of the ranks. And then the third one is to generate now the final ranks for each candidate. So rank 1 will be like the best candidate, and then rank 6 will be the not the worst candidate, but the least best candidate. And then the final step will be to display the result. So let's start with the first step, computing the sum of ranks. So here we have, for each candidate's vote, there is the rank for a representation of candidates. So here we have the vote for candidate 1. So candidate 1 has rank 1, then candidate 4 has rank 2. So what we're going to do is just sum group by candidate ID for each of these votes. And yeah, that's what we're going to do here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look through each vote, and then for each vote I'm also going to look through the vote item here to get this object here. So for each item in these votes, the votes list, I'm going to pick them. Then I'm also going to look through each list for this vote item here. The naming here is kind of confusing, but hopefully you will understand from the code. It's not best practice to have such kind of naming. So let's just go through each vote. So I'm going to have, for candidate vote in, so we have here ranked choice, so rc.votes. So now we have this being the first vote, then we have another one being the second vote, and so forth. Then for each of these votes, we are going to loop through this vote here. So we're going to say for let me call it candidate ranking, in candidate vote. But inside candidate vote, what we are looking for is vote. So now we have this object here. Then now we can do the summation, and the summation that we're going to do will be done in this object. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for the candidate ID. Now, like for example, this being candidate 1, we'll look for candidate ID here being candidate 1. Then we're going to add another item in this object, and that item we're going to add will be sum of ranks. So what we're going to do here, I'm going to show you that here. So I'm going to try to access inside that object, I want to access the ID of the candidate that we're going to sum the ranks. So what I'm going to do is candidate ranking, because we want to get the ID. The ID is here, so candidate ID, so candidate ranking, and then we're going to have candidate ID, and then inside there we're going to say in this, so what we've done so far is we are saying we want to get this ID based on the ID of the vote here, then we do the sum of ranks here. So what we have done so far is we have gotten the ranking, that is this one here is like an object for the ranking, and then we have picked the candidate ID for that, so that means that it's going to return this. The next thing is that we need to allocate this rank to the sum. So we'll say in this object of the candidates we are going to add in this object of the candidates, for example candidate 1, we are going to add another item inside here, and that item is going to be sum of the ranks that was allocated. So I'm just going to add this one here as sum of ranks, and this should be equal to this ranking, but instead of candidate ID here we're just going to pick the rank. So this is plus equal. I understand that there are some cases where sum of rank item does not exist, like at the beginning this item does not, this object here does not have the item of sum of ranks. So what we're going to do is, if it doesn't exist we create it, but if it exists we sum. So what we're going to do here, we're going to put a condition: if this key is in this object, so if that key is in that object, then do the sum. So we get the previous sum and then we add the current rank. Then if it doesn't, that is the else bit, we create it. So we're going to say rc sum of ranks equal to that sum of ranks. So this is how we are going to compute the sum of ranks for each candidate. So let's try to print, just want to see that this is working. I'm going to print rc.candidates terminal. Let's run this file. It's in main, so python 3, then main.py. So currently what I'm looking for is to see if the sum of ranks is computed for each candidate. So that will mean that if we go back here, that will mean that candidate 1, we shall have 1 plus, we go to the next vote, what did candidate 2, this is candidate 2, what did candidate 2 put? Candidate 1, we shall check here, candidate 1 here is in rank 3, so it will be 1 plus 3 and so forth up to the end. So here we can see previously we had the candidates object looking like this, but now we have the candidates object looking like this. And for each item, that means each candidate, we have added an item here called sum of ranks. So that's the purpose of step 1, to be able to compute the ranks. And that means that the person with the least number of, or the least sum of ranks, is the one who is the most preferred, because we're saying the first position is the most preferred candidate, the second position is the second most preferred candidate. So if you sum the ranks for each candidate, the one with the least sum is the one who is the most preferred. So the next thing that we need to do is to sort the candidates by the sum, and this is straightforward. I'm going to call this object as sorted candidates, and this we're going to use the sorted function in Python. And what we're going to do is to sort this object here that we have created, that we have updated, but we need to follow a certain criteria. What we need to sort is by the sum of ranks for each object. So the next thing we're going to do is to first of all convert this to a list. So I'm just going to have this as item, so it will be a list of objects, and then from that list now it will be easy to sort. So the key of the sort will be a callback function, and in that callback function we're taking in an item. Remember, an item now is a tuple that is returned from these items here, and in that item what we need to access is the second object. Remember, here if you're to print out this, I can challenge you to go and print it out. You will see that the tuples that are returned from this object will be the key and the object. So what will be returned there will be this as a tuple, and it will look like this 1 comma then this object as in this position. So what we need to access is this object here to play with. So what I'm going to do is the item, which is this, and what I'm going to access will be the index 1. So this is index 0 and this is index 1. So I'm going to access index 1 of that item, and then inside that I'm going to access now the sum of ranks. So here we have name, then we have, remember it also has this as sum of ranks, so I'm going to add here that. So what I'm going to access will be this sum of ranks. So sum of ranks. So let me explain this again. So sorted is going to sort a list, and what we have here is a list because we have here an object, but when you do .items it gives you a list of these tuples. And so we are going to sort by a certain criteria on the key, and the key here will be now a callback function. That's why I'm using lambda, and this callback function will take each of the item here and return the value that we need to sort with. And now the value that we need to sort with is the sum of ranks, which is gotten from the first index. Then step 3 is to generate the candidate's rank based on the sort. So what I'm going to do is to just add an extra. So here we added here an item. I'm going to add now a rank onto this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to loop through this. This is a list, and then I'm going to append the index into the first item. The item in the index 1. So this one is the item in the index 1. I'm going to add another item here. So for index in range length of this sorted candidates, it's a list. What I'm going to do now is to access these sorted candidates. Then I'm going to go to the index. So remember, it is a list with several items. So I'm going to the index, for example, index 0 or index 1 or so forth. And then in that index, I want to access item in the first index. So here, let's say we picked index 1, then we access the item in the first index. It will be that object. And then we are going to add rank item. And then the rank item is going to be our index. But I don't want the rank to be 0. We don't have rank 0, so I'm going to have +1. And that's how we're going to add to generate candidates rank. So what I want to do now is to just convert this list of objects back to dictionaries. So I'm going to say rc.candidates. I'm going to update this variable here, and to update it with just dictionary, dictionary, and the dictionary is going to be for these sorted candidates. Then step 4, before we reach step 4, let's print again this, just to be sure that we are fine. And I'm going to run this. Voila, so we can look at this item 6. So this candidate 6, the name is name 6, the sum of ranks is 27, and then the rank 6 or 6th. We can look at, this is the first person, and this is like the candidate number 3, and the sum of ranks is 17, and the rank number 1, because now this is also sorted, so that's why we have the last one here. So let's display this well. I'm going to use pandas. So DataFrame, I'm using pandas basically because I'm a data scientist and I like it. So pd.DataFrame, remember we already imported pandas here as pd, and I'm just going to throw this here, and I'm going to transpose it. There is a way you can pass in variables here to make sure that it comes the way you want, but let me just transpose it just to make things easier, and then I'm going to print that data frame. So I'm going to remove this and I'm going to run. It should be presentable. The reason why I'm using pandas there is just to be presentable. So based on the way these candidates voted, and this is how the way they voted, this is the winner. Candidate 3 is the winner, and this is the sum of ranks, and he or she is the one with the least votes, or the least sum of ranks, and then candidate 6 has the most. Yeah, so this is how I have decided to implement ranked choice voting in Python. You can find the code in the description. I will not put this in GitHub. And in case you want to make any improvements, you can make maybe on the speed, and then you can share with other people here or somewhere else. Thank you for following this. Until next time, take care.
Deep blue water sea, afraid of jumping in right now. right now. 한 발을 내밀었어 걱정이 많이